Welcome to the U-Turn podcast. My friend, this is Ashley Stahl. I'm your host, and you are in the right place if you're ready to create a business, a career, a personal brand, or just a life that you're so proud of. And every single week, we want to support you by bringing you PhDs, subject matter experts, psychology practitioners, business leaders, all here on the show to elevate your success in business and also in life so that you can leave a legacy, you can amplify your authority, and you can really skyrocket the amount of opportunities you're creating for yourself in your career, whether you're corporate or you're a business owner. And if you are new here, again, my name is Ashley Stahl. I'm an international bestselling author of the book U-Turn, Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, Design Your Dream Career. And most importantly, I'm the CEO and founder of Wise Whisper Agency. I'm a top 100 TEDx speaker on the internet, and I was so inspired to create Wise Whisper and help clients craft their signature talk. We've helped hundreds of clients craft their talk, and we've also helped so many of them land spots on some of the biggest stages in the world, including the TED and TEDx stage. And so I am here on a mission to help every changemaker I know impact millions. Also, before we get into this episode, shout out to our friend Andy B. Mackin, the artist that has gifted us this sick new music for the podcast. Let's get into this week's episode. Okay, U-Turn friends, you know that in life I meet interesting people as I'm just bopping around, and Dana Frank is no exception. She's a nationally best-selling author of a book called Get Up and Get On It, a Black entrepreneur's lessons on creating legacy and wealth. She's recognized as a USA Today, Barnes & Noble, Amazon bestseller, and winner of the Pinnacle Book Achievement Award, Reader's Choice Award, Goodreads Award. She leads her family's 70-year-old apartment rental business in Seattle, alongside her 92-year-old mother and her adult children, championing the importance of generational wealth through real estate investment. Obviously, she's a sought-after speaker. She engages audiences all over the world. There's so many amazing things she's achieved. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm super fascinated by investing in real estate. I think there's so many ways to build wealth and to create assets for yourself. And I think real estate can be just as inspiring as it can be misunderstood. So today is a conversation for you. If you're thinking, I got a little money in my pocket, or I'm trying to make a little savings, how do I get started? This is the conversation. So Dana, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ashley. What an introduction. Really honored to be here and to share with your listeners today.
Thank you. Okay, you said this is a 70-year legacy that this family has been building. So you grew up around real estate.
Yes.
So
our story began in 1950. My father was 18 years old, and he came of age in his hometown of Detroit, Michigan. And again, it was 1950. He's a Black kid, and his options were limited. It was the time of Jim Crow laws and segregation. And my grandfather told him, just stay in your lane. My dad was real hot-headed, and he said, get one of those good jobs at Chrysler or Ford. And my father looked at his friends, his peers, getting up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, putting in a double shift on the assembly line, and coming home at the end of 2 weeks with barely enough of a paycheck to put a decent meal on the table. And my father just was not down with that. So he was a budding drummer. He packed his van. I always loved this story, with his dreams and his drums. And even though he needed a green book, which was called The Negro's Traveler's Guide, to tell him where he could sleep safely at night, he arrived in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle. And when he saw this beautiful landscape, I mean, I can't even imagine what his mind was like, coming from Detroit to Mount Rainier and the Olympics and Puget Sound. And he just said, I got to get busy. So he enrolled in classes at the University of Washington. He lied about his age, and he started playing drums in Seattle's jazz nightclubs. And this was a time of, great jazz history in Seattle. And he got to talking to a regular patron that had a home for sale. And my father struck a deal and worked off the down payment. He became his gopher and his chauffeur. And in order to make the $48 monthly note in 1950, he rented out rooms to his fellow students at the University of Washington. And I always say this was long before Airbnb was even a concept. People that invest in real estate, I know everyone thinks that you have to have money, but you also have to have creativity. And what my parents were able to do when they got married in 1954 is, from that first purchase in 1950 until 1969, they purchased an apartment building every year using creative financing for 19 years without any bank funding. And so today I steward that business, and I'm super proud because they say only 12% make it to the third generation, and that our family's been able to keep this going that long. It's one of my most proudest parts of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people talk about starting a business and they don't talk about keeping it, and it's such a different thing. It's like putting a rocket in the air, launching a business, and then a lot of entrepreneurs get burnt out or the market changes and they don't have the fight in them. Talk to me about somebody who's maybe listening right now and they feel like they want to kind of start with investing, and there's really no guarantees. Like, we're living in a time of climate change. I love the idea of investing in Florida because of the state taxes, but then you got insurance and hurricanes. I don't want to invest in California because I grew up there and it's not very or not very landlord friendly. So there's so many things that I look at.
I genuinely believe, and this is how I was raised, is that cash erodes, equity grows. And you create annuity income because people are always going to need a place to live. That's just a human necessity. And so, of course, I say, know your area, know where you're investing. But I teach an acronym I call REAL. Do your research. The foundation of any successful endeavor is doing your research. E, expand your network. In the 1950s, 60s, 70s, when my parents weren't bankable, they found bankable partners that put up the down payment. My parents did the work, refinanced, bought their partners out, rolled into the next business. Expanding my network. I say my network is my net worth. Mm-hmm. There's so many opportunities to engage with like-minded people. And a lot of people don't want to have the headache of apartment management, mm-hmm. but they've got the capital to invest. Mm-hmm. So I'm a member of every social club you could imagine. And through my social networks, I have found many partners. Amplifying injustice is the A, the woman as a minority. There are so many programs that are now trying to make rights from previous wrongs. Here in Seattle, we've got a program called the Covenant Homeownership Act, and it's a year old, and it targets minorities who have been in Seattle since 1968, before the Fair Housing Act was turned in 1968. Anybody that is a BIPOC and has roots in Seattle since 1968 can get down payment assistance and 0% interest through this program. So that's a part of amplifying injustice and making your voice heard and understanding what rights are available to you. And then the last is the L is leverage, and leverage your bank, leverage the relationships that you have with people. So that's really what I teach in terms of trying to get started in the real estate game, especially if you don't have capital. And if you do have capital, if you're fortunate enough that your family has passed down something, look for deals, figure out a way to, like we did, buy on contract, or go to your bank and sit down and say, this is what I make, help me get into this house.
Yeah. Okay. So speak to me in terms of the person right now listening who wants to make their first purchase and they don't know where to begin with what to consider. Maybe they're thinking, should I buy a duplex in a random market that seems like it's growing? Maybe that's hard because I don't know what I'm doing and I don't live there. Should I buy a house in this market? Like, what are some of the things that you start to think about if you were mentoring somebody in their first purchase?
Okay, I love value add properties because I can go in and,
what does it mean?
Value add meaning that I'll find the possibly worst property in the best neighborhood.
Yeah.
So do your research again, check the walking score. What are the schools like? What is the groceries like? What's the safety rating? So the research, and then find the worst property that you can go in and do your own upgrades. You figure out, and today with YouTube, you can really even become your own home improvement expert. But something that you can go in and capitalize yourself, get some friends together, paint, upgrade, fix it up, and then you create your own equity going in. And then know the market, check Zillow, check what the rental market is, Craigslist, whatever it is, and then locate. I always look at properties, and my kids and I purchased a building last December, and I made them do the research. And I said, how large are the one bedrooms? Are they large enough that we can create a 2-bedroom to amplify the income? All of the questions that I'm asking, I made them do the homework. What's the walking score? Everything. And they did their due diligence, and it penciled. And we are definitely in a state here in Washington where it's not so landlord friendly right now. I mean, it's really a lot of times we're operating with our hands cuffed with winter moratoriums in place and just bad actors that don't want to pay rent.
Mhm.
So you don't want to overextend yourself or put yourself out there where you can't cover your bottom line. But I really find that if you know your area, and I do not advise people to go, all of my properties I can drive to, I can walk to most of them. But I really think, especially if you're just getting started, make sure you know where you're investing and that you have accessible access to the property.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as far as picking a market goes, like I think we live in a world where people are very mobile and flexible. And I was talking to ChatGPT for 3 hours the other night about what markets are climate change resilient. Like, how much do you think about climate change with where you're headed as a legacy business that invests in real estate? When you think about businesses growing their sales beyond forecasts, you probably think about a product with very high demand, a very focused brand, and influence-driven marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Shopify is home to the number one checkout on the planet, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout brands like Mattel and Heinz use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/U-turn, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/U-turn to upgrade your selling today. Again, that's shopify.com/U-turn.
I genuinely believe that, as I said, I go back to my basic that housing is a necessity and people are going to always need a place to live. Climate change, like you were talking about with natural disasters. My husband lives in Nashville. I'm in a commuter marriage. I'm in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the tornado warnings and the things that are happening there, you know, where he lives, it's frightening. I don't have that experience being here in the Pacific Northwest. But again, you know, those things it is prohibitive to try to get insurance to cover. I'm in an area where we have earthquakes, the cost of earthquake insurance, and it's a gamble. You have to decide how much are you going to put out there, you know, and then you have to weigh all of those factors.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no crystal ball, right? Like I look at myself and I think, oh, maybe I'll buy a duplex in Miami for my first purchase because I love Florida. My brother lives there. But then I think to myself, well, what if like I look at the California fires, like what if insurance companies just drop the opportunity to have flood insurance? And like, what's your take on that? Like, what goes on in your mind when you think about that as an investment that companies, like insurance companies, can just decide to stop functioning?
I had a very expensive year because I had to replace roofs. I had to replace roofs on 35 unit buildings. I had to upgrade electric panel boxes that had a certain type of box that was prone to fires.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to invest. And that's the thing is that you have to stay ahead of the game. And our sweet spot is that we provide quality, affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you stay up to date and you keep your properties, I always say it's like investing in children. You know, you get back what you put out. And, you know, so we just plan and, you know, make sure that when we are investing that we're covering all of those bases, leaving a margin, you know, for those types of failures. But all I can say is that I've been doing this for 40 years and the gain has far outweighed the risks that I would have taken. I mean, I remember days when my parents were purchasing waterfront property for $10,000. And my father always said, just because it's on your ass doesn't make it an asset.
Yeah.
You want to invest and you will appreciation, all of the benefits, appreciation, depreciation, all of the benefits that come with owning real estate far outweigh the catastrophes, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. 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 And when it comes to property managing, like, I mean,
there's got to be a tipping point. Like, let's say somebody right now, they have $50,000 and this is like their big savings and they want to invest right. Property managing can be kind of a headache, I imagine, like kind of intimidating. So yeah, I would love to just understand a little bit about like how people can think about that or what your take is on that.
So as I said, we run a family business. I work with my mom, my 31-year-old son, my 24-year-old daughter. And a lot of these residents have resided with our family 50 years. I mean, they really do become family.
Mm.
And of course, you're going to have, I mean, in my book, I share stories of some of the headaches. I mean, we had a hoarder that was a former fireman, and we had no idea that this man was living in such conditions that you couldn't even walk into the unit. It was floor to ceiling trash.
Yeah.
And when we took the fire department to kick the door down because he was injured and we discovered this horrendous mess, I mean, it was awful. In my book, I shared stories of, I always say being a landlord and a housing provider is you wear many hats. A lot of times you're dealing with the psychological issues that people are having. We had this wonderful applicant on paper, worked at Microsoft. His wife worked at Amazon, beautiful credit score. The guy moved into the apartment and then all of a sudden he started urinating. There's no other way to say this, in the halls. Every morning he would urinate in the halls, and we finally caught him. And when we approached him with this, he admitted that he had a condition called uralgia, that he enjoyed the smell of his urine. So you're dealing with all these different kind of mental issues. So there's many hats as housing providers that you have to wear, having compassion, meeting people where they're at, and trying to work out issues.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's a huge privilege to provide housing to individuals. And we have found we've had some great experiences. And our happiest day is when someone comes and say they are moving on to buy their own property.
Mm.
That's the great thing, is the rental market has gotten so prohibitive that I've watched people spend tens of thousands of dollars in annual rent. And at the end of the year, all they have is a receipt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels really vulnerable, I think, to take that first step. And I'm guessing once you get your feet wet, you learn. I actually just had a bee infestation in my home in Los Angeles that I rent. And my landlord was very quick to write back from a perspective of not quick, like 5, 6, 7 hours later, considering there's like hundreds of bees in my place, I can't be in it. He kept ignoring texts of me asking, like, hey, is there a hotel I could stay? I had nowhere to stay. I have a 100-pound dog, and there's bees everywhere in the kitchen.
Uh,
And he kept ignoring me, being like, hey, where can I stay? Do you know? And I think it's a certain type of stress to be able to handle it. It's also interesting, like my experience of him, he had a bee person come and he said it was the bees were gone, but I can't use the dryer because they came through the dryer and they're going to fix the dryer.
Awful.
I said, okay, no problem. I had a cleaning lady come in tomorrow. I'll reschedule her because she was going to use the dryer. He goes, oh no, definitely keep her to clean up the stingers on the ground. I said, oh wow, okay. And then I texted him, hey, my cleaner's $250. And he said, oh no, the bee cleaners are professional cleaners. We do not cover your cleaner. And it was like I could see he was making a paper trail on text, but verbally doing what he did, telling me, oh, definitely keep your cleaner. But then, so I think there's like a dance that a lot of people do in life with landlords, and there's a lot of bullshit, for lack of a better term, that everybody plays.
Totally.
I really work hard to try and like myself as much as possible and be in integrity as much as possible. And I'm not a litigious person, so it's like not my style. I absorbed the hotel. I paid for my cleaner. I asked him if I could get out of the lease early because I just feel uncomfortable doing business with him at this point. I'm so disturbed, you know?
No, that's the sad truth. I mean, a lot of time you have bad actors on both sides.
Yeah.
And I always tell the housing provider, it is a privilege and an obligation to be there for your resident. I
Yeah.
mean, when this 35 unit building that I was just talking about, that we had to replace the roof, the roofing contractor that we hired left it exposed. And so the top floor units got soaked. And I took it upon myself to put these people in hotels, to pay for their damaged items, and to expediently repair the unit. And that's how being a housing provider is a relationship business. And those housing providers that are not right by their residents, they're not long for the game.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to live in a place where, there's a slumlord or the properties are not well kept.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I do know we live in a world that people try to squeeze things out of people. I'm sure landlords are just like exhausted because these are the entrepreneurs. I understand you have all these units and you have this legacy, but behind that is somebody who built it and sweat for it and
That's right.
hedged for it and lost things for it and dealt with a pile of risk. And there's not a lot of compassion sometimes in different states for that kind of a thing. So if somebody's thinking about taking on a tenant, what are some things you look for to decide that you should, or would you advise somebody starting out maybe to just rent out like a single family home and like buy a home with a guest house? Or are there any strategic things you would recommend for somebody to start to think about being a landlord?
I love to amplify the income any way I can. So I always look to have, maximum rental bedrooms in a place. And I think that we do a thorough background check. My father, coming out of Detroit back in the day, I mean, we didn't have access to social media or other ways of looking into how a person's history was. So my father would literally be like, do you own a vacuum? How are you going to keep my apartment clean if you don't own a vacuum? He'd go out and look at their car and see how they kept the interior of their car when they came to see a place, or check out their current living conditions. And a lot of that runs true today. I mean, it's like you have to really know a person, and it's a relationship connectivity, and I meet people where they're at. If they don't have a great credit score, but they've got a great job, they can't get a cosigner, I'll be like, well, you're asking me to cosign, and I don't even know you if you don't have a cosigner, no one to vouch for you.
Mm.
And so you have to look at each situation on a case by case situation, but history does define what is. If someone has a history of late pays or evictions or any issues that arise, they have to be accountable, and that follows them through their rental history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Like growing up in a state of California, there's just so much stigma. It's like entrepreneurs are scared to be here, you know? And it's weird too, because for me being a tenant, I saw how the landlord was pretty negligent with me. Like he just would ignore any attempts for me to get housing when I literally couldn't be in my home. It was like probably 200 bees in the kitchen.
It's crazy.
It was crazy. And it was such a weird feeling. And like obviously from a personal development perspective, I felt so small that like I had nowhere to go. And my dog and I were in the car. My parents were having a party with kids, and my dog's friendly, but like I wouldn't bring my German Shepherd into a party of a bunch of little kids necessarily. So I was just like driving around all day waiting for his call back. And it felt very much like the business guy versus like the small shop.
Well, that's where the amplifying justice comes in. I feel that residents should investigate their landlord as much as the landlord investigates them. I mean, again, it's a relationship basis, and you can check social media, check out the housing provider and understand what their history. Talk to other tenants in the building, find out the history of how they have treated others, so you know what you're coming into.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. It's interesting. It's like we live at such a fast-paced life that it's hard to do those investigations because we just want to check a box. But it's interesting because when I look back, and this is a life lesson, I think, for anybody, is like I look back and I viewed the unit and I remember my dad was like, Ashley, the bathroom is flooding. And I told him, I'm like, hey, the bathroom's flooding. There's a hole in the wall. And she was like, oh, we'll get that handled. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, check, check. And so I signed the lease. And also it was shared utilities, and I didn't understand what that meant. And he's like, oh, just check the lease. I'm like, well, yeah, but do I cancel my Southern California Edison? Like, what do I do? He's like, just read the lease. It's all in there. He brushed me off. I should have known then, like, this could be a weird situation, but I didn't. And the day I moved in, there were mushrooms growing on the water in the bathroom. And I asked a couple more times about the utilities. So I canceled my electric. I'm like, okay, shared utilities. I guess the lights will be on. That's weird. Like, I'll just sign up for this platform livable or whatever. I get in and my movers show up at like 4 o'clock and it's starting to get dark and there's no lights and we're all using iPhone lights to move me in.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I'm like, wow, like I get it. We live in a busy world. This guy's busy. He's an influencer building his real estate business on the internet or whatever he's doing. And it showed me that in life, when we're attached to something or we're in scarcity, and this has to do with real estate or anything, that we aren't thinking clearly and we're not in a high vibration, right? So I was in a lower vibration. It was the fires in LA, and I was like, I need a place. And this is great. This place is great. I need to get this place versus, wow, there's like water and mold growing in the bathroom, and this guy doesn't seem to care. Or, wow, he's like brushing me off and I'm asking about electric. Like, instead of going into scarcity and saying, this, I gotta get this, going into like, there will be something better for me. And
Yeah.
I think this is the thing, not just with real estate, but with life. And it's like in life, we can be a victim and say, God, they can't believe this landlord. But I've been very much looking at this situation like, well, of course, bees have infested my kitchen and like there's something going on here. Like, he doesn't really care, you know?
Well, I think, and with regards to the fires, I thought it was horrific how they gouged
Oh,
tenants and
yeah.
the rest. That's just unacceptable. But I think the key of what you're saying here is you also need to keep a paper trail. I would document with pictures. I would send by certified mail, and you've got the power because housing providers, they cannot stand to have a tainted reputation. I mean, once that gets out there, people are not going to entrust their lives by renting from them. And I just think that's really important that they're exposed and held accountable.
Well, and if you look at the world we live in, I think the challenge is like I have a brand too, and we come out of cancel culture. I don't feel safe. And this is my own personal development. Like I kind of feel like I don't know what like I feel like one of those complainers. Like I have an agency, right? We've crafted and booked so many speeches for people. We've probably had 5 clients out of 100 that were tough. And I'm so sensitive to being the tough client because there's the client like I remember one of them, we helped him get booked for like a TED Talk. And he was like, hey, it's in a small town and I'd rather be in a big town. Can you get me another one? And our scope permits one TED Talk.
Yeah.
And we're not like a vending machine. And so I never want to be that person that's like completely out of the scope and just asking for things. I hate that feeling of being the paper trail girl that's like building a case. And that brings out things for people, right? Because life is a mirror. People can feel a paper trail from a mile away. Like
Sure.
I saw him text me, hey, the bees are handled. It's a professional cleaner. And then he calls me and says, keep your cleaner. There's bee stingers. You know what I mean? It's like, and I can't believe somebody would trade their integrity for a $250 cleaning fee.
Agreed. Agreed.
But
Totally.
they do. And sometimes I think the world we live in, it makes you want to just be like, where can I live in the world that doesn't have all this? Like, do I need to go to Bali or something? Like, where do I need
Yeah.
to disappear to? But all of it said, you make a good point, and I think this is a personal development thing that we've moved into, is like having the courage to find a way of how do I create a paper trail with love? How do I have an energy here of like, hey, here's your responsibilities, here's mine, here's what I'm seeing, I'm sending this to you so you have this for your records, like hope that you can handle this in the future.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, that's what breaks it back down to ownership. I mean, if people have the ability to own their own place, they're not going to have to deal with someone else raising rents and not following through on their duties and obligations. And you get so much benefit from owning. I always say there's not what other business do can mere strangers put money in your bank account every month? I mean, and that happens when you own real estate.
Well, I think the dance is the math, right? Because sometimes they put money in your bank, but more is going out. I love what you said about being the ugliest house on the block. I know people say that. I'm imagining somebody listening right now, maybe they have $30,000 that they've saved and they want to put it into real estate. What would you do if you were in their shoes and you never really invested? Maybe they have a little money in the market, they've been working at their job, they've got this 30K and they're like, I'm willing to move. I'm willing to do something. I want to get started. What would you do as a beginner?
I would assess what my outgo is right now. I'd look at what the rent is that I'm paying, and
Uh-huh.
I would say, how can I turn that into equity? And I would find a property that I could fix up. And if it's a 3 bedroom, I'd find two people to cohabitate and rent out those 2 rooms, help me cover the burden of the mortgage, get investing, fix it up, refinance, take that cash when I pull it out. Maybe it's a couple of years down the line, roll into the next building and keep doing it.
Mm. How long would you say if you're a smart person, you're a hardworking person, maybe you're on like 150K salary and you were originally parking like $4,000 a month into your rental or whatever, and you do that, right? You get the place, you get the roommates. How long would you say that somebody, if they really are intentional with what you're saying here, could become a little bit financially free? Maybe they replace their 150K salary. How many years do you think that would take if they were pretty astute with their numbers?
Excuse me, I have seen it happen rapidly. I mean, if you find, I have seen people go in and invest, and within a couple of years, I mean, they are on the next project, flipping houses, buying them and flipping them, or just building their own empire. But
Mm.
it really, the appreciation, and if you do the work and fix up, and I've watched it evolve with just minor touch-ups. Instead of carpet, put in wood laminate floors and find granite countertops. And there's so many things that you can do to make a place charming. And it just really raises the value. I mean, it's just like instant
Raising.
value add.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking about buying a home, a duplex in Miami and having one unit to myself and then making the outside really nice and turning the other unit into an Airbnb and just
Yeah,
learning how to do that for fun.
the revenue stream could be huge. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say to me as somebody that's like, "Oh my gosh, Miami's going to go underwater in 50 years." Would you say you're good? Like what
I
would your take be?
totally, I don't bank on that at all. You can't bank on fear when you're in this
Okay.
market. You just have to do it. And like I said, we're on a fault here in Seattle. Knock on wood. We don't have an earthquake, and I'm still investing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you've got to have some grit to be that person in the world. And also just contractors and permits. There's a whole lesson learned. I love that you reference YouTube like as a place that somebody could go to learn about investing and not make it like that scary thing in the room. So, how do you have a calculator that you use when you're deciding if somebody's because for me, I think about buying a duplex and any of you who are listening, by the way, on U-Turn, I know that if you own or occupy a duplex all the way up to 4 units, you can put down 3.5%. So if it's pretty amazing, right? Like if I can buy $1 million duplex for $35,000 down. And granted, it's probably going to need a little bit of fixes and stuff like that. There's closing cost. I'm sure it adds up to a little more than 35,000. But one thing that goes through my mind is how do I know I can rent this thing out? Like, what if the market's slow? What if you don't want to be too optimistic? So what do you do to make sure that you're being diligent that like you can rent something out or calculating how much fixing is needed on something, or even using a calculator overall to look at a project.
So first of all, you can always get free estimates. Find a contractor in your area and just have them come. I always say I work in threes. So get 3 estimates for whatever rehab that you're looking at getting done, and check their references, check their work.
So I love the estimates. That's for a contractor. What about
Yeah.
confidence? Because I'll go look at Zillow or PadMapper, and I don't know how long those rents are sitting there. So maybe it shows a rent a block away for 2,700, but it's been sitting for 6 weeks. Like, how do you know the pace of the area and
Got
manage
it.
your expectations?
I use a app called Rental Meter,
Uh-huh.
and it gives me all of the rentals for the past 12 months within a few mile radius of whatever property I'm trying to list. And
Okay.
so I also go out and I will act as if I'm a renter and look at the competition, see what's available. And then you can easily track on Zillow, on Craigslist, how long something's been on the market. And that's where you understand your sweet spot of what the rent should be, and you understand the demand.
Yeah.
Everything is going to rent. It will rent. It's just a matter of the price. Nothing is just going to stay vacant.
Yeah.
And this everywhere there's a housing shortage, and people
Yeah.
need need housing. So that's it. It's just really digging in and looking at what the comparables are. And if you bring a viable product on the market, you just know that someone's going to take it. If it's near a university, you can advertise to the, university dorms and the students. And, if it's near the hospital, hit the nurses. I hang up signs. I really do old school advertising and marketing. I hang up signs in the Starbucks or the local grocery stores. And a lot of it is word of mouth. I'll, talk to the neighbors. Hey, who do you want to live next to? If you got somebody in my larger buildings, I'll say, I'll credit you so much off your rent if you send me a renter. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. And I think another thing is just around pricing. You talked about fixing things up. Where's the 80/20 there? And I also want to ask you just about calculators as a whole. Like if I want to buy a duplex and it's my first nut and I'm going to owner occupy it, which I own a couple of homes with my brother, but this is actually something I'm thinking about doing is owner occupying this duplex. But how do you calculate the 80/20 on fixes, right? Like somebody might say, God, I really want those, cool floors, those herringbone or whatever the term is for the wood, cool floors. But it's like, well, you're not really going to get the ROI on those. That's a personal preference. Like, how do you decide what fixes you can make that you're like, wow, that's actually going to quantum leap the rent? Like, I think a lot about little things like light fixtures. I think about like I go into a place and there's ugly light fixtures. You put nice light fixtures and the place feels different. If it has ugly floors, new floors, hugely different place. So how do you decide on that?
A lot of times I let the residents choose if they want those extra upgrades, because you're right. You cannot over improve because it just will not pencil to your bottom line. And I mean, people will ask. I mean, you get some crazy requests, and I mean, like I have one turn of the century building. It's built in 1902. And, it's got an old style clawfoot tub. Well, the guy that rented it is like, 6'5" and he wants, to take the tub out. And I'm like, you know what? If that's something you want to do, this is what you rented. You go ahead and do that, but, save the tub for me and I'll put it back when you move. So, all of it's negotiable. But I think that, within reason, you just have to really look and not over improve and not, put yourself in a deficit and that's what happens when you're a homeowner. When you're a homeowner, you can do that. But when you're a renter, it's, kind of what it is.
But even for the homeowners, it's like, well, if I want to rent this out eventually, do I really need the granite flown in from Italy and like all that stuff?
No,
like that stuff. Is there something small that you think is the secret to good renovations that it's like anybody should think about this little thing that really does increase the rent?
Yeah, I love we keep a seamless operation. We use the same colored paint on, every unit so we can come in and touch up easily. We use the same, laminate wood floors. I mean, they're all cookie cutter. We use the same granite countertop from, a distributor that we buy. We buy all of our large stock items from HD Supply. And, so it's an easy turn. It's just, and then if a resident comes in and they're like, oh, I want to paint the walls, fine, paint them, but just paint them back when you move out.
I love that. Okay. I'm trying to think.
Don't change it. I mean, if it's just keep it simple. That's the best thing I can suggest is just keep it simple.
Uh-huh. And what do you use as a calculator to make sure that it's a good purchase based on the mortgage, the interest, the insurance, the fixes? Like, how do you calculate, like, all right, the mortgage on this place is $5K a month. I can rent this unit out for this much. This is my nut. Like, what do you do to decide if it's worth your down payment and your purchase?
Everything that you just said. You just look at what your rate of return is going to be. I mean, not getting into cap rates because every city is different, but I think it's just the basic math. If you say, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to take this $30,000, how much would you have been making on this $30,000 if it was in, a savings account, 2%, and so then you just say, I want to take that $30,000 and I want to amplify this. And what I do when I look at real estate is I look at the long-term investment of how much appreciation has happened over the past course of a year, 2 year, 5 year. And you look at it in terms of the long term. Yeah. But for the novice starting out, I think it's just really important to understand what the rental income will be to help you cover that note.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people are doing Airbnbs in their basement or, buying the duplex so that, if they don't want to live with somebody, they can have that extra revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been so much fun to ask you about. I hope it gets somebody that didn't think they were going to invest in real estate to start to say, wait, why am I paying rent? Maybe I should do this. And what books or resources outside of YouTube, which I think is a great recommendation, and it's like obvious, but it's not, would you recommend people check out to maybe start to get their mind moving?
My book,
Get on it.
I give our whole history, everything that we're talking about, from credit scores to, bank financing. I really go into detail about it for someone that's looking to get started in real estate. And I just think that it's a get up and get on it attitude that, taking that first step. And once you get rolling and get over the fear and you're in the game, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
I love, and most of the books that I read are business books. The foreword of my book was written by Damon John from Shark Tank. As we've talked about Damon, and Damon's books are so great. The grind, rise and grind.
Yeah.
And I just love reading true stories of how people have started and changed the narrative despite what their birth circumstances dictated. And there's just a Trevor Trove, Barbara Corcoran, another Shark Tank person. She's got a wonderful book about how she got started in real estate. Yeah, so there are so many mentors. And in my book, I actually interview several of my personal mentors, including the founder of J.G. Wentworth, Gary Valorik, and, a dear friend of mine named Rosemary Francis, who was born into abject poverty in Canada. And at 16 years old, she drove away knowing there was a better life. And now she's one of the largest female developers that I know, extremely successful.
I love
and
that.
her book is called A Better Life Book.
Amazing.
So yeah, knowledge is so much power. And I advise everybody that's interested to just read and to get started.
Thank you so much for the time and the love. And I'm going to put this all in the show notes. Just appreciate getting to be with you.
Oh, Ashley, thank you. I so appreciate it. And get that duplex.
I know I'm going to. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the U-Turn podcast. I hope you learned so much in this episode and you're putting it into action today. We would love to hear from you. Slide into my DMs at Ashley Stahl or leave a written review if you're inspired. It would mean so much to us. Be sure to subscribe to the show because, as you know, the more subscribers we get, the better the guests we can bring you. And in the meantime, if you're looking to skyrocket your personal brand and impact millions, head on over to wisewhisperagency.com to learn more about how we are getting clients booked for the TEDx stage.
Martial Arts Productions. So incredible.
Trying to do tonight, swear you don't even try, yeah, you still fine. Wish I can try to make you mine, but I don't think you like you're the puzzle that I'm trying to solve. Always think you know it, I've been thinking about you up against that wall. It's too late, I fell on every